Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming your way with the market recap for the 19th of March. It is a Tuesday. It was one of those, it was an interesting day in the market. It really was. Good afternoon, Patricia. Hey, Andy, good to see you, my friend. I hope everybody had a great day, both in and out of the market here today. It was an interesting one. We kind of gapped up on the open and kind of got moving. And then all of a sudden, investors seem to think, wait a minute, tomorrow's the Fed meeting. Maybe we should lock in some profits. So then we saw quite a bit of selling. And then the last hour of the day, everyone's like, wait, did we sell this off too much? And you saw a nice volley of bulls at on the last hour of the trading day. So definitely an interesting one. And good afternoon, Lloyd. Good afternoon, Marcelo. Great to see you guys as always. Here we have the S&P 500 heat map. Really mixed day. Financials tried to break, but really failed, on that 27 break, as we'll see when we get into their ETF. I think really probably the story is tomorrow's Fed meeting. So yeah, it was an interesting close, no doubt. Em, good to see you. I hope you are doing well. On the earnings front, we do have a couple of S&P 500 companies. FedEx is coming out here tonight. At first glance, it looked like a miss, although I didn't really get to dig into it at all. About 1 minute before the recap started, the news headline dropped. So it looked like it was a miss, though. And we have General Mills coming out here tomorrow before the open. You have just a very small handful of other companies. It is very light on the earnings front going into tomorrow. So you also have the Disney and Fox deal wrapping up. And so now Disney will own the kind of the movie side of things of Fox, and Fox will become kind of its own thing. Its ticker symbols will be 20th Century Fox. Oh man, I was going to remember it and I can't remember it. 20th Century Fox. Oh man, I can't remember it. So I'll find it for you tomorrow. They'll be going on the S&P tomorrow, and so I'll get to know them. It's weird, and I was trying to remember it all day long, and I knew I was going to forget it. So we'll skip that one. But that is kind of the Fox News, the Fox Sports type of a deal, which is left over, kind of the assets that Disney didn't take. It looks like for the new Fox. I think it's just called Fox Corp or something like that. So yeah, there we go. I've looked at some of these ticker symbols for so long, I can't help but remember them. But new ones, yeah, they can get me like with the best of them. So here we are on the S&P 500, a nice gap on the open. So it used to be 20th Century for Fox Inc. Class A, but now I think it's just Fox Corp Class A, and so one will have the A and one will not. So they still are doing the dual shares as far as that goes, but it's something like it's kind of like their name, 20th Century Fox something. I think it's something like that. I tried to put together something to remember it. I'm going to give up. So we'll take a look at it tomorrow. Certainly not hard to find if you want to go take a closer look at it. But they did just start going trading here today, and they'll be going basically replacing the old Fox on the S&P 500. So S&P, a nice pop on the open, hung around for a little while, and then really started moving. And it was one of those days that, we were getting closer to resistance, and all of a sudden investors are like, wait a minute. I mean, I guess there's a possibility that the Fed says something we don't like tomorrow. Let's go ahead and take some profits. And so the profit taking just kind of kicked in throughout much of the trading day. And then that last little bit, we had that little bit of movement towards the end of the day. What's really interesting is the way it impacted our hourly time frames. Here on the S&P 500, we kind of have almost a textbook bullish retracement, maybe sold a little faster the last candle before our hammer, but we ended up with a nice hammer candlestick around some of those hourly moving averages, showing at least, yeah, we're not really selling this, more we're taking profits. At least that's kind of my read on it. Saw the same thing on the NASDAQ. You saw the same thing on the Dow. On the RUT, a little teeny tiny one. So it's had a hard time for the most part keeping up with the other indexes, and today certainly was no exception. Obviously, kind of looks just like the market's looking ahead to tomorrow's Fed meeting, just to see if anything does kind of shake out there that they don't anticipate. I don't think anybody's really anticipating much. I know I'm not really anticipating much, but none of us know, right? None of us know for sure. So as we switch back over to the daily, far more importantly, I think, than the intraday action, although very interesting, I thought today, we are continuing to hold the breakout on the S&P 500, just another day above that breakout point. But all of a sudden, we find ourselves, on the intraday high today, getting pretty darn close to that first level, at least in my opinion, that first level of resistance. So from just a pure price perspective, I think it made a little bit of sense to take some profits here today. All of our moving averages still moving to the upside and all of that good stuff. So to me, still very bullish. Even if we get a little bit of a bullish retracement, I wouldn't be unhappy with that. We've really, basically this is the first day that we've seen selling during the day since 2 Fridays ago, right? We sold early, but we bought all day long 2 Fridays ago. So continue to monitor how we, respond here, but probably that Fed meeting is probably what the market's looking towards. I'd almost expect kind of a slow day tomorrow and an anticlimactic, opinion of that announcement, assuming it's kind of nothing really happens, which is kind of what I think generally the market is expecting. I know it's certainly what I'm expecting. Same deal really over in the NASDAQ. We did technically close up in the NASDAQ, our only index to do so here today. So the other indexes did end their winning streak right just below that 74. So we ran really, really close to that 7,400 area, which, at least for me, is kind of that first level of resistance that we're going to have to deal with after our most recent break back here last week. Again, a pullback would be fantastic. Pullbacks are great because they give us these opportunities, right? We complain a little bit about them when they're happening, but they're really fantastic once they do happen. So will that happen? I don't know. Of course, I don't know. But if it were, 7,400 on the NASDAQ seems like a sensible place from my point of view, at least, for a little bit of profit taking. Whether that extends out into any more than that, I don't know. It's very strong, and it seems like the type of area that right now investors are looking for excuses to buy. But maybe that is just my read on it, and I'm not quite with the rest of the crowd. So over in the Dow, very similar price action, not quite as clean of a doji candle as we saw over on the NASDAQ, but still kind of hanging above those short-term moving averages. That 9 is starting to creep up, and I'd really like to see that 9 EMA get back above that 20. That always makes me feel a little bit better when those things are stacked the way they're supposed to, the shorter term on top of the longer term, 9 on top of the 20 or below the 20 if I'm bearish, but really not a whole lot to see here. Still have some room to go. So if we do want to continue to move, there is a little bit of room before we're challenging significant resistance over in the NASDAQ. And the rut, well, they just can't get involved. They've been trying, and I don't think we can say they've failed just yet. But once again, they're just being held down by that turning 20 period moving average, just showing, just not getting involved for whatever reason that is. The 20 period moving average, of course, can act as a little bit of a resistance or support catalyst, but it, I don't know if I would think it's a brick wall. And lately, the rut almost seems like it is a brick wall. It's acting like it's kind of a first test of a 200-day moving average or something like that. Didn't do anything particularly wrong, but whereas we saw some pretty decent strength, at least things that look like pullbacks on those hourly timeframes, over here on the Russell, you're almost seeing something that hasn't done anything wrong yet. I'm going to try to draw a live straight line. That rarely works out for me. That's not too bad by my standards. But a break of that, would kind of be a little bit of a reversal. And so this area, this index continues to be my least favorite, like many, if not all of you guys and the other coaches. Just does not want to get involved, at least as of right now. Watch this floor that developed over the course of that last week. We'll have this little 2-day floor that's kind of developed this week, but the floor that developed throughout the course of last week, if that gives out, I would definitely call that a bit of a sell signal. I don't think I would call it a tradable sell signal. We are still way too close to the rising 50-day moving average for my tastes, but I would be a little bit concerned from a bullish point of view if we do take out last week's floor personally. Over in our sectors, it was one of those days when the market got cooking early. Some of these areas were, looking like maybe today was the day they were going to break out. Some of them did and failed. Some of them did and succeeded. On the material side of things, ran right back up into resistance and came right back down off of that resistance. We've talked about this resistance level a lot, and certainly the market continues to respond just north of that 56 level of resistance. Nothing really has changed for me. Still looking at it to break and giving another bullish signal. That is what I'm leaning towards. That is what I'm looking for, I guess I should say. But it has not happened yet, so I don't want to get ahead of myself. It can be easy to do, of course. Support still way down here as far as our support level is concerned. I'm not sure, Ilka, if you're here or not, but if you're not, maybe you'll catch the recording a little later. Ilka just kind of brought up, a potential is there a cup and handle on gold? And I think when it comes to cup and handles, I want it to be testing a high. Now, this isn't pretty, especially with the end of the day price action, but we've got our potential cup here. And as long as we hold this support level, which we'll see if we're able to, this would end up being our handle. And then the break would be, of course, the cup and handle breakout. So I'm always looking for it testing a high, which we haven't really seen over on gold. So I hope, Ilka, if you catch this, hope that makes a little bit of sense there. Not a whole lot really has changed, though. Still, holding up, just having a hard time breaking resistance. I still think it wants to, and I'm still overall looking for that to happen personally. But until it does, it hasn't. Right. Same deal over in energy. Really ran up right to that top of that trading range. It looked like today was going to be the day that I was going to have to decide what to do about it. But that was not the day that the trading gods had in store for us after all, coming in off of that resistance level, at least for today. Nothing has changed for me. I still really do like a break of that 67 resistance level as a bullish signal. And again, I still am interested in that from a seasonality point of view. Not today, though. Not today. It's easier said than done to break out of these ranges. So sometimes it feels like it's not that hard, but it really, it takes a lot of money for that to happen, right? It takes a lot of faith. Well, who wants to buy right at resistance, right? Certainly not me. Swing support still for me down here at about $63. So really from a bearish point of view or changing my overall bias, that's where I am with that. Financials tried to break. Again, early it looked like it might have been one of those days, but we actually ended up with a pretty ugly looking red candle over in the financial sector here today. There was definitely profits to be had over the last week or so of trading, and folks definitely took them once the market started taking profits here today as well. I don't think that this really did anything with our chart. From a overall technical point of view, I do think it can make it a little more difficult maybe for us to call exactly where a breakout is. Do we still call a close above 27 a breakout, or do we call a close above what is now today's high just north of 27 as the breakout? So it maybe changed exactly where I'm going to call that breakout point, but it really hasn't changed overall where I am within the sector personally. Industrials knocked on the door of that 75 resistance area, and nobody opened, at least here today, but they did try. And this a break above this, as we've kind of talked before, will be a step in the right direction. Industrials have been a little bit lagging. FedEx is, of course, part of the industrial sector, so they're, at least at first glance, doesn't look like they were going to do this sector any favors tomorrow, but there's still a lot of time for traders to digest that report, myself included. So nothing really has changed. I think from a bullish point of view, I do want to get back up above this 75 before I get too excited about things. Beyond that, there still is not a lot in our way towards 77. So I still lean to the bullish side, but I'm going to lean to it once we break 75. So until then, I'm kind of sitting back just a little bit in the industrial sector as of right now. Heck, yeah, good solid day. Doji up here, at that 74. We talked a lot about that 74 on both the NASDAQ and the XLK Technology ETF. And for me, this is where we were going to run into challenges from a potential resistance point of view. So a pullback, again, this has been a strong area, and we've seen many, many times together that just because it gets to an old pivot or something like that, not a major level of previous resistance, sometimes that will be the area that sparks the profit taking. Sometimes it doesn't care, right? So it's not so much that I'm bearish or I feel I have to take profits at this price point, but I do think, for me at least, we're kind of in the area within the tech sector overall for at least thinking about it, especially if we see a little bit of downward movement leading into a potential pullback, maybe going into early next week, which would be great. Again, I'm certainly more than happy to have that be the way it plays out. Over in staples, just another day trying to break out, another day not convincing me that it has it in it. So nothing has changed for me. We do continue to hold up well, so I have a hard time seeing any sort of a overall bearish argument on this sector. I don't think I would try to make one, but I can't really get behind the bulls until we break that 55. It's trying. I got to give it credit, but it's failing. I've got to be careful. So nothing really has changed. Above 55, I do think I will call that a break myself, but I'm certainly not holding my breath. But eventually we're going to have to make a decision. Either we're going to break to the upside or resistance is going to push us to the downside. So nothing has changed for me. A couple of things that have changed, though, are utilities and real estate. Over in utilities, that profit taking continued, actually quite a bit of profit taking here today. All of a sudden, the price is right. Just yesterday, I was saying, hey, get down into that 57.25 range, and maybe we have a pullback opportunity. The price is right as far as that goes. The confirmation for me is not there yet. I certainly can't, my rules will not allow me to get into tomorrow. Whether or not I should or shouldn't, my rules will not allow it. But if I see a little bit of, slowing down in this area, maybe a doji or a small bodied candle going into tomorrow, maybe going into Thursday or Friday, there could be some interesting pullback opportunities, in my opinion, at least, in this sector. I do look for this 57 to put up a good fight. I don't know how excited I'd be about a deeper pullback, to be quite honest with you. This was just that all-time high. This was a major break. And of course, when we finally clearly broke it, we really went on a utility tear. So I do want to see that area be the catalyst for support. I don't think you can make a case, again, at least I can't make a case that tomorrow's the day to buy it. If we have a strong bounce back day tomorrow, I won't be terribly surprised. I'll just have to wave at it as it happens. But if we do see a little bit of, doji type of candle as early as tomorrow, maybe something is interesting late part of the week. I love where we came to from a price perspective. I love that is what, at least for today, held as support, that old 57 breakout point. Need to see that momentum slow down, though. That's quite a bit of momentum selling into this. I'm never going to be that trader that's trying to catch the knife. But if I see some signals develop here, well, that can be a different story. Utilities, overall, the trend still remains, of course, very much intact for me, at least. Over in healthcare, we actually saw a little bit of movement to the upside in the healthcare sector, and a few of these ugly things. I'm still very cautious with the sector overall. But on some of these things, like these healthcare plans that have shown so much weakness, we did show at least a little bit of strength. And again, this is early and kind of the first, step one, if you will, but actually breaking resistance, and by virtue of that, putting in a new high. So this could potentially be a little bit of a reversal. Now, I'm not ready to go buy Cigna or things that look like Cigna personally. That's way too early for me, but I can see, there's at least a little bit of effort, and we're starting to see some of those stocks, try to break through some resistance, which definitely will help the sector overall if those guys aren't in a free fall tailspin, right? Again, we're just one day and it's just one signal, I'm not going to get too excited. But it definitely had a positive impact on the sector as a whole here today. Really not a lot of resistance until that 93 or 93.50 range, which we do have a lot of resistance in that ballpark. So we'll definitely want to keep an eye on that. I still will continue to take the one by one basis. I'm still not very comfortable trading the sector as a whole. It's going to take more than one day to convince me otherwise personally. But we did take out that little top that we've built over the last week or so. Don't have really a lot of resistance. So from a purely technical point of view and not really thinking about the individual components, I think this is a very attractive looking technical chart, with not a lot of resistance for another dollar or thereabouts on the ETF. Discretionary almost made my day. I think it definitely gets the you made my day sector for me here today. We did gap right above that 112 on the open, which we've been watching that as a potential signal. At least I've been watching it as a potential signal. And then we really got running. Really started running above 113 on the day. I want to come to the 15-minute chart here. So we had our gap. We kind of cheated a little bit above resistance. It looks like certainly I'm not the only one who is waiting for that break of 112 as a signal, because we really started cooking. We were definitely outpacing the market the first part of the trading day. It did get caught up in the selling towards the second half of the day, much like the rest of the market. But it did kind of settle. You can see that last 15-minute candlestick there, buyers coming right back in. We did settle right on top of that old resistance zone. So we closed on the right side without taking off, which is, I think, the way that I would always like it to be. So I do call this a signal. I want to see a little more movement. You guys know me. It's always, give me some follow through. The first signal I'm very interested in, that's where I'm thinking about it. Give me a little bit of follow through and I can be excited about that. Really not a lot of resistance on this chart, at least to me, until we get to into that 115 range. So I will definitely call this a bullish signal. Again, just day one, but very interested. I don't love the close, but on the one hand, I think I understand why it closed like it did. Basically, everything sold off the second part of the day. It wasn't just this sector. So to me, it does appear that there may have been some market pressure as opposed to sector pressure. If the market kept running all day, we might be at 114 right now. Who knows, right? So I do overall call this a win from a bullish point of view. Don't love the way the candlestick looks, regardless of what I think about the development of that candlestick. So I want to see a little bit more momentum working into it, but I really do continue to like this sector. And as long as we're above 112, I'm going to probably feel that way. I think that was a big win for the discretionary sector personally, at least short-term speaking. Not a lot of resistance. Wish it would have been just a little bit better close, but can't have everything, right? You can ask though. Over in real estate, much like utilities, developing into a nice retracement, maybe a little nicer than utilities, just from a organizational standpoint, just consecutive lower highs and lower lows. Today's candle was smaller than yesterday's. We're kind of hanging out at the 20-day moving average at this old resistance level. Again, do I need a little bit of upward movement for confirmation? I do. Those are my personal rules. So I need at least one more day in this sector, but it has opened up the door, in my opinion, for some interesting pullbacks. Now, these are REITs, and so you guys know that they're not maybe the fastest moving instruments as a general rule, but they've been very strong. The trend is intact. Seeing a little bit of slowing momentum into that moving average, into that resistance. So again, there might be some interesting pullbacks in the real estate and utilities late this week, at least with the way the charts are looking here today. Of course, the confirmation is always the kicker, right? It's easy to get to the price. The confirmation's a little bit tougher. But I definitely like the development of both of those areas from a bullish retracement perspective myself. Over in the communication services sector, interesting day, back and forth type of a day. Again, I really haven't changed my opinion all that much in this area. I don't really love this ETF, as you guys know, because I just don't really feel like so many of these things in the sector belong together yet. I'll eventually probably learn to feel that way, but I haven't yet. I didn't figure it out over the last 2 days. But we did see Facebook hold up at that support zone. That's going to be helpful for this sector. A break of that is definitely going to put some pressure on that ETF. Maybe more importantly, more interestingly, we actually had Google run right back up into, we're pretty close to that resistance zone. Hasn't broke out yet, but we're at least looking like we're going to take another shot at that resistance. Activision Blizzard, one of my, companies that I love and I hate at the same time. TVI, that helps if you put in the right ticker symbol there. Breaking above its 50, finally starting to see some signs of potentially a turnaround. I don't think that's a great looking bullish chart, but I do think it's showing at least a little bit of strength. So we're seeing some different, continuing to see different looking charts on the various components of this area. So I continue to still like to look at it on an individual basis, at least for now, and that's been the case really since forever. But that's where I'm at with it. It does look like a pullback. It really does look like it tried to confirm today and was not able to do just that. Maybe not a great looking pullback, but it does kind of look like one. It'll be interesting to see how a Google break could potentially impact this ETF if Google is able to take out that resistance zone. So really just kind of one of those days where it seemed like it wanted to run, and then for whatever reason, I think it's, the Fed meeting's tomorrow, let's take some profits. But for whatever reason, wasn't going to happen here today. For the most part, didn't really mess up our charts or anything like that. In certain cases, maybe did us a favor. All of a sudden, we're at least being able to entertain the thoughts of a pullback in utilities, a pullback in real estate, a breakout in the discretionary sector. Didn't have these huge tails on the upside of breaking out on the material sector or the energy sector. So I don't really think it changed our charts really all that much, for me at least. We'll see what happens with that Fed meeting. My suspicions are it's going to be kind of business as usual, but that can be a volatile day. So we'll have to see where that one takes us. Of course, over in the dollar, a little bit more drift as we just kind of continue to hang around on that 50-day moving average. Still in, as of right now, still holding a higher low. Hasn't confirmed or really shown that it really wants to. Not loving it. Our 9 is now starting to fall, crossing that 20, showing a little bit of not great momentum. I mean, that is just a very short-term indicator and a little bit lagging at that. I don't really like the pullback, but you guys know that that's really not what I've been interested in on the dollar anyway as of late. I continue to wait for the potential break to the upside. I do think a break to the upside is a very appealing signal if I am able to get that. But overall, I continue to treat this as if it is sideways because in my opinion, at least, that's exactly what it is. The pullback's not dead. The pullback opportunity hasn't confirmed, hasn't shown us those turnaround signals yet. So for traders who are looking at it from a bull pullback perspective, I don't think you have to stop looking at it from that perspective. I don't think, again, per my rules, it's not going to be there tomorrow. And if it is, it's going to have to be there without me when a chart looks like this. But we are still holding a higher low, still holding a 50-period moving average. Next stop probably is around 96. If we do give out, that really is going to be our next support zone. Also swing here, going to line up pretty close with that 200-day moving average as well. Over in the VIX, a little bit of a pop with some of the profit taking that went on here today. Nothing terribly dramatic, but a little bit of pop as we saw some selling come back into the market. Over in gold, we did test resistance. We did not pass that test, selling off fairly respectably off of that first test of that resistance zone. From a bullish point of view, above that, a break of that, I would call that a break. And whenever something's breaking resistance, I always will believe that all other things considered, it can be a bullish opportunity. Now, I don't really think it's a great opportunity from a swing trading perspective, but I will say this. If we do break out of this resistance level, there really isn't a lot of resistance until we get back up into these highs. So, that's not a ton of room, especially on gold, but there is some room, at least potentially, if that support or if that resistance level is taken out. I still tend to agree with Matt, who's kind of looking at it more of not a swing trading perspective, more as a position type of a trade. And the trend has gotten a little choppy. And so while I will call this a break of this resistance, I will call it a bullish signal. I don't personally think it's a signal I would want to trade. Now, again, if we are having this exact conversation in a week and a half, I'll probably feel differently. So we'll see how long we hover at this resistance level. Really, our major support level still down here at around 1280. Just want to get this chart kind of back into easy going. It was nice when it was easy going. No real argument one way or the other. The bulls were in firm control of it during, for much of late last year and much of this year. So let's just let it develop is how I'm looking at it. But certainly I could understand somebody saying a break of resistance would be a bullish signal. I would agree. I just wouldn't necessarily agree that it was a tradable bullish signal for me. Over in silver, knocking on the door of that 1550, much like gold, kind of worked to the top of that range. I think I have a much harder time getting behind a break of resistance on silver, for better or worse, right or wrong, than I do on gold. I respect this level of resistance a lot more. It had, I'd taken a bearish play off of this hammer and this downward movement, I would still be in the bearish play on silver. So I still don't like it above this. I get it. I do understand that that would be a bullish signal if we take out resistance. Whereas gold, at least in my opinion, we have some room to work to the next level of resistance. In silver, we've got to deal with the 50-day moving average. We've got to deal with 1575, this old swing low. There's just things in the way. So again, I still, if I'm picking between the two from a swing trading perspective, a break to the upside, I would prefer gold to silver as of right now. A little bit longer term, a break of either one of these major levels here at 15 or here up at about 1615, I think those are great signals. And I think for me, at least, we'll just, today at least, still not interested. Resistance still holding at that 1550 area, no doubt about it. We now have to challenge that 20-period moving average, so something's going to have to give. We did test it, on our doji or gravestone doji back here, tested on the intraday right here. Both times have failed. Either we're going to push through that resistance, or that falling 20 is going to push us down in the relatively near future. Doesn't have to be tomorrow, doesn't have to be this week, but eventually something's going to have to give there one way or the other. So still don't think the metals are looking great from a swing trading perspective personally. But you may disagree, and I certainly could understand some arguments, as far as that goes. Over in natty gas, running very close to the top of the trading range, and for the first time actually breaching that 50-period moving average on the intraday. We did not close above either one of those areas, closing just below that. It's developing into what Coach Mark and I call a pinch, where it hasn't happened yet. We're just one day, but basically that 50 is resistance, the 9 or maybe even the 20 as support. Eventually, it's going to have to make its mind up. Doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but it does seem like we're getting a little bit closer to having to make our mind up one way or the other in natural gas. Are we going to break, or are we at least going to work back to support and kind of reset? We will have to see. I don't think any new signals are here, but I will continue to maintain that I will call a break of this resistance and a close above this resistance a bullish signal personally. Tradable signal probably depends on what it looks like and when it happens. Big candle on Friday, no, not a tradable signal. So a small candle on next Tuesday, definitely more interested in something like that. Continue to be very, very range bound, but we're knocking on the door. It appears like it's trying to at least test that high, just not passing here today. And over in crude, a little bit of a doji type of a day. We did run up a little bit, did run down a little bit, kind of closing flat here today in that 59 area. Not a huge level of resistance. We talked a little bit about this not too terribly long ago. This does kind of coincide with this little breakout point and this support zone in here, just north of $59. So there is a little bit of history in there. I don't necessarily think that that's a big deal. I thought, it was a lot scarier a month ago, in my opinion, at least. But we do have a little bit of price action historically there in this 59 general vicinity. If we can push through that, I still do expect us to have an honest chance to run towards that 200-day moving average. If we pull back off of this, I do think that's perfectly reasonable, and I would be okay with at least entertaining the idea of buying into the pullback if and when something identifiable were to develop happening, we're still holding that 58 breakout point. So we didn't do anything wrong today, I guess, from a technical point of view, just because we didn't run. Didn't do anything wrong just because we didn't take off, right? We hold that break. I'll watch that as my primary support level, but I'll also be watching this rising 20 as a support zone as well. And really from a flip around and go bearish perspective, it's still for me below 55. So anywhere from bullish, neutral to bullish above 55 on crude personally. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. An interesting day. Didn't really get anywhere. Didn't really change a lot of things, but some very interesting price action on the day, in my mind at least, with the way that it went. I mean, the really thing that's interesting to me is all of those hammer candlesticks that ultimately formed on those hourly time frames. I don't know if the financials had one. Yeah, they did too. They did too. They actually had a hammer candlestick. So a lot of these areas, just like the market, put in these, really interesting looking. If this is the only chart that we look at, if I only trade the hourly chart, I'm very interested in the way this looks on the next candle. Now, obviously, we're taking more into account than that, of course, but nice to see that there were bulls coming back in amidst a little bit of selling pressure. And sometimes it's easy to forget that that's kind of hard to do. That's money, right? So I think it was an interesting close, definitely an interesting day from a price perspective. We are, getting close to major, maybe major is a strong word. I would call them, fairly significant levels of resistance in the S&P and the NASDAQ. Those are potential challenge areas, in my opinion. So if we do get a pullback off of this, wouldn't be terribly shocking, and I wouldn't mind that at all. If we are able to push through that, probably have a little more in the tank before we get that pullback. So we'll see where we sit after the Fed meeting here tomorrow. I don't expect it to have a huge impact, but that doesn't mean it won't, and it doesn't mean it can't. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts things, if at all, here tomorrow afternoon. So, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do the market recap for today. Michael asked on AMD. I think you have to like the AMD. I think the question isn't, do you like AMD? It's, how do you want to play it? I mean, I would understand the argument. I'm going to come to a weekly chart. I mean, this was 11% on the day. It's always tough, for me at least, to buy something the day after it went 11% up. Doesn't mean I shouldn't, just means I don't. So, but if you just look at it from a purely technical point of view, that is a pretty decent little break on this weekly time frame. Nice little breakout. Of course, we'll come back to the daily chart. From a new entry, I'm a little bit on the wimpy side, Michael. So I would be waiting for something new to develop, maybe go sideways a little bit, and then, for 2 or 3 days, and then break above the high that we put in here today. Obviously, that may or may not happen. I don't really feel comfortable. And again, it doesn't make me right. I would have said the same thing back here and missed out on one heck of a day here yesterday. But after such a big move, it does scare me a little bit when it happens all in one day, because I can only think about my own perspective. And if I did own AMD this morning, bought it this morning, or bought it off of the 200 bounce back here or whatever, I'd have it on a pretty short leash. You think, wow, that defied my expectations, certainly within the time frame that I was expecting them. I would have it on a pretty short leash. And I know that's just me, and I don't speak for the market, but I can only think like myself, right? And so I have a hard time wanting to buy them, because I think everybody else is thinking that too. Even just a little bit of selling, we'll all start taking profits. Obviously, that's not reality. But that is how I feel, why I'm not very comfortable jumping in on something after a move like this as a general rule. Now, my opinion withstanding, I mean, you do have to call this a break, and I do think that's a tradable break. I really do. A close above resistance on a ton of strength here today. I mean, that's the textbook a breakout. It's just a matter of, it's just a little out of my comfort zone. You made me guess, I would guess up. If I had to do something with AMD, no questions asked, I would buy. If my choices were, you are thrown into the pit of doom, buy AMD or sell AMD, my choice would easily be buy AMD. Not a question at all. Nice break, nice weekly chart, taking things out, a lot of momentum. It's more so that I wouldn't want to have to sit through a potential pullback in reality, since no one's going to make me do anything. I wouldn't feel comfortable giving it enough room to potentially sit through that pullback. Now, if I got that pullback, I'd be very interested in potentially getting an opportunity off of it. So, but I do think, I mean, I think you have to call this a very bullish signal. AMD certainly can move. It's, it can go on runs as good as anybody. It absolutely can. And a break of resistance, I mean, that's always going to be a bullish signal to me. Whether or not I want to trade it, that's the discussion, not whether or not I think it's a signal. I'll always say a break of resistance is a bullish signal. And certainly on the real momentum that we established here on AMD, I would say that even more so. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. Hopefully you're in it and think about what you're doing with your profits. Certainly probably was a fun day to be in AMD, no doubt about that. Strong day, biggest mover on the S&P by far today. I think the next top gainer was like up 4%. These guys were up 11. So they definitely win the internet today, at least the S&P 500 internet for the day. I mean, that is a heck of a break. New entry, a little tricky for me, but again, no one will ever accuse me of being particularly bold. And so sometimes that works to my favor. Sometimes it's just, hey, see you later. I'm looking at you at $34, wondering what happened. Why didn't I get into AMD? So we'll see. But usually, you'll get some opportunities that develop. So interesting. Thanks for bringing that up, Michael. Definitely an interesting chart. Definitely a big move today on AMD. Very interested in seeing where it's going. But I do think you have to like that break of resistance. If we can hold that break of resistance, there's definitely some upside here. So we'll see where this one goes too. This, I think you're probably not the only one who follows AMD, Michael. Fairly popular stock, good covered call stock, good option stock, a lot of fun and a big mover. I mean, for a $24 stock, it's always not 24, but it's in that, $20 range. It can move faster than a lot of other stocks in that general price range, at least when it wants to. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll let you get the heck out of here for today. But as always, it's certainly my pleasure. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for joining me live. Thank you to all of those who will be catching the recording a little bit later. We certainly love you guys as well, even though we don't see you live and in person. If you are new around here, be sure to take a minute, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell and join us over at Tackle Trading on Twitter as well. You can also find me at FrankMartin23 on Twitter. I'm never too far away. I'm always happy to chat a little bit. So, you can always reach out to me or say hello or send me a chart you think's interesting. I'm never afraid to look at that. So, and if you'd like me to get you added to our Team Tackle list, and I haven't done so yet, just let me know and I'll be happy to do just that. So, hey, thank you all so much for your time. It's always more fun to do this with you guys than do it on my own. So thanks for joining me here today. Enjoy the Coaches Show this afternoon, all of you pro members. And if you're not a pro member, why not give it a 15-day free trial? See what it's all about. Maybe you'll like it. Just head on over to tackletrading.com and they will get you set up with that. And you can hang out in the Coaches Show here today as well. With that, ladies and gentlemen, get the heck out of here. Thank you so much for your time. Always great to see each and every one of you. You guys have a fantastic day. Enjoy the Coaches Show. We'll see you tomorrow in the actual. I'll see you in the halftime report, live and in person. I will be there. Looking forward to that. It'll be fun to sit in with my old friends Matt and Tim. So, well, at least Matt. I don't think Tim's going to be there, but so it will be fun to sit in with them. So I'll see some of you over there. I'll see the rest of you here in the recap tomorrow afternoon. So thanks so much, everybody. You guys have a fantastic Tuesday afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.